Hey, what's going on, everyone? Um, where have I been for the past 2 weeks? Adjusting to a new life of self-isolation, whilst also working from home, as well as trying to home educate a house full of children who demand all my attention all day, every day. How does that make me feel mentally? But joking aside, life is crazy right now, and it's taken me this amount of time to conjure up the appetite to make a video, as sometimes you simply have other priorities and need to settle your mind first. But I'm back, and a lot has happened that I've wanted to talk about. None more pressing than the recent release of the Panzer Dragoon remake on the Nintendo Switch by Forever Entertainment, but also many other things on a similar remake level, as remakes are certainly a hot topic at the moment, and I've certainly discussed them on my channel a number of times before. So instead of directly reviewing the Panzer Dragoon remake, something I can't do as I haven't bought the game yet, which there are many reasons for. What I'll do instead is go into the topic at a slightly different angle, broaden it out and state how I feel through that. So without further ado, let's just get into it. So as you'll see by the title of this video, I'll be discussing what I describe as playing with experience. And what I mean by that statement is heavily linked to not just remakes, but also outside developers tackling existing IPs and gameplay mechanics that became famous by their originators, the creators, the ones who set the templates in many ways that have never been succeeded outside of those original houses. You see, it's difficult to show people today why Sega was so great, why they were pioneers in so many ways, and why I personally label them as the kings of the arcades. In the arcades, over countless years of creativity, experiments, and building experience, Sega honed a level of skill in both gameplay and design that hardly anyone could touch. Naturally, most of these skills didn't come instantly. It took, like I said, years to master their craft, and most importantly, mastering their craft is exactly what Sega pushed for in the arcade scenes back in the day. And this applies to a large number of other great developers who mastered their crafts by constantly honing, reviewing, and building up experience of what they had done before, and eventually applying that to the next games. Naturally, all experiments don't work out, especially when you're trying something new, and even more so in the early days of video games. When it comes to like platforming, as an example, Nintendo over the years and years honed their skills, mastered mechanics, experimented, evolved, revolutionized, and continued to master what they essentially became masters of, and that's gameplay in the fields that they excel at to a point where no other studios can come close or even bother trying. The same reasons why companies like Capcom became the kings of fighting games, and everyone wanted to try and mimic them, but very few came close. Capcom continued to use their fighting prowess to dominate and set the standard. Blizzard became the name they are today based off their dedication and artistry when it came to their once three pillars of the industry, titles which were Warcraft, Starcraft, and Diablo. Everyone tried to copy, yet no one came close, because Blizzard, through experience and knowledge over years and years and years, defined those genres and continued to for many years until they essentially, unfortunately, became a different company, one that is hardly recognizable to what made them the greatness that they were back then. Now, just these few examples should start to paint a picture of where I'm going, essentially with, let's just say, some remakes or takes on IPs by different developers, or sometimes even the same developers who are unfortunately a shadow of what they once were. The Panzer Dragoon remake I covered a number of times on this channel previously, along with Shenmue 3 and Streets of Rage 4, all once classic Sega IPs that are all very near and dear to my heart. And speaking of my heart, Where once there was a desire and excitement for new entries or remakes for many of my most beloved gaming IPs, my heart now sinks and, I suppose, recoils at the idea of many of these classic series and games being remade or reimagined, sometimes by the current developers themselves, but even more so when these IPs are handed out to other smaller or different studios and not given the time and budget that they truly deserve. I got a few negative comments towards my reactions for the announcements and eventual reveals of games like Shenmue 3, Streets of Rage 4 and the Panzer Dragoon remake. I consider all these classic IPs as AAA as you can get in this industry, and I certainly rate them more highly than many of the would-be called AAA games that flood the market today. I said from the start that Shenmue 3 should have been given the budget it deserved, the budget it required, as Shenmue was never an indie title or a AA title. Shenmue was as AAA as it comes, and for many good a reason. Streets of Rage, set the standards for side-scrolling beat-em-ups, and I'd have many arguments as to why it's arguably still the greatest 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up series out there. And as for Panzer Dragoon, the entire series is simply art, plain and simple, and there is virtually nothing else like it in the gaming industry. And once again, it set the standard for what a rich world, story-driven and absolutely epic on-rail shooter can be and should be. And then even it evolved into my personal favorite JRPG ever, and probably still my favorite gaming experience ever, which is Panzer Dragoon Saga. But here we are, the game has released, and just as I predicted, it fell short in the areas that it needed to be perfect in. Now, I'm sure the developers at Forever Entertainment had all the passion in the world, not just for this remake, but for the series in general, as well as the utmost respect for what Sega created, and they would try their best to honor that legacy all they can. But at the end of the day, Forever Entertainment are not Sega. They are not Team Andromeda. Forever Entertainment might even be as old as Sega, but they are still not the Sega of old, the company who became the kings of the arcades and many genres for a reason. When you try and replicate such experience in game design, such design that set the standards for decades to come, you don't mess around with it. You just don't. In regards to Panzer Dragoon, there are simply fundamentals that need to be mastered in order to replicate what made that game and the series so great. And as soon as you tamper with those things or get ideas to change them in some way, even convinced that it's for the better, that's when you need to sit back and strongly ask yourself what you're actually trying to change. And not just change, but in your mind, make better. That should be all the warning signs you need to step back and say, right, is this the right thing we should be doing? But Forever Entertainment, I suppose, aren't the ones to blame here. The blame goes purely on Sega themselves, a company who is now unfortunately a shadow of their former selves and seem willing to let their classic heritage be offered out or let go with little fear or hesitation, or sometimes without them even being involved on a level that they should be involved in. Now don't get me wrong. Sometimes some developers manage to take an established IP and completely understand what made it great and get things right, but these are rare happenings, and we've seen far more failures than successes. We had a discussion recently on the Juice is Loose podcast hosted by Terminator Juice. Check out his channel, and then everyone linked to it. You'll see all links in my channel for these great YouTubers. What we discussed was where sometimes some IPs, regardless of the argument of game preservation, which is a completely different debate by the way, some IPs simply don't need remakes, or simply just need to be left as they were, and upscaled for modern systems, frame rates corrected, blah blah blah. Because some games simply can't be remade without something greatly affecting what that game was/is, what made it great, and what the original developers and creators envisioned and perfected through years and years of mastering their craft. When a remake essentially plays worse than the original, something is wrong. My only lament about the Panzer Dragoon remake not reaching the heights of the original in many ways is that this was essentially a once-in-a-lifetime chance, something I said in a previous video. This is most likely the only time we'll ever see the original Panzer Dragoon remade officially. Some will be content, happy just to see the series return, but as for me, there's nothing to essentially smile about, because this series is as close to my gaming heart as any series can get. I wanted Panzer Dragoon to return in full glory, but unfortunately that hasn't happened, and this makes my fears come true about the utterly sublime and perfection that is Panzer Dragoon 2, which is being remade by the same developers, and I personally have kind of lost all hope in it now, especially when the current developer essentially can't replicate the lock-on cursor and full 360-degree rotation of not just the original Panzer Dragoon remake which they tried to do, but they essentially are tampering with the fundamentals of the entire series. If you can't get that right, leave it alone. Why change such fundamentals and then expect to capture, or even better, what the original was? I just don't get it. You simply don't play around with experience, hence the title. You either match it or surpass it, because anything else is simply lesser. And when you're playing with much loved IPs, some of which hang on a string for survival and the hope of resurrection in a what is a changed gaming landscape today, what you release simply cannot be inferior. It's unacceptable for the fans and for the original creators, and as developers it should be unacceptable for you. But I think I'm done here. I didn't want it to turn into a rant. I just wanted to try and say what shouldn't be messed around with, especially when something has been perfected through years of experience by developers who honed those skills over decades. But what are your thoughts, people? I'm the type of person who wants to see their favorite gaming series given the full respect that they deserve, in all avenues. Of course I'm open to new ideas and new developers taking the reins, but for me it's utterly essential that those precursors are respected in every single way. Otherwise, I prefer them to be left well enough alone, just pieces of gaming history left to history and preserved exactly how they were created. But let me know your thoughts as always. I hope everyone's keeping safe. Take care all, and peace.